Ladies and gentlemen, we have credible information coming out of Burkina Faso that Captain Ibrahim Traore has just handed over some large fleet of fighter jets to the Burkinabe Airborne Brigade. According to the information we have, a lot of lethal equipment continues to enter Burkina Faso. They said these are some of the latest procurements that Captain Ibrahim Traore has made previously, but are just entering Burkina Faso. And one of the standout equipment is the YAK-130M. Now, we do know that the YAK-130 series is a simulation officer or personnel training type of aircraft, but the YAK-130M, meaning a modernized version of this yak, is just to an extent could be a game changer for the Burkinabe Armed Forces. How could it be a game changer for the Burkinabe Armed Forces? The reason being that the Yak 130M does not only simulate different wartime scenario, like helping officer to lock targets, simulating different type of enemy defense system, radar system, and it equally has an advanced radar system because it didn't have this type of capabilities before. It can perform light attack like using air to air or surface to air, or to air to surface, you know, strikes. And according to the information we have, that the Yak 130 is capable of carrying some type of guided bombs and munitions, carrying missiles and all of that. Good flight range, good aerodynamics, and this Yak 130M could actually be deployed as both training aircraft and both real military exercise aircraft for the Burkinabe Armed Forces. Now, a lot of people might be like, okay, the Yak 130M is not really one of the best aircraft. Yeah, we can't say it's in the class of the Lockheed Martins or the Sukhoi class or the F-22 and all of those type of aircraft. No, the MiG-29, but it's actually a very fantastic aircraft. It is not the only aircraft that has just been procured by the Burkinabe Armed Forces, but at least it is extremely good because of its maneuverability and the capabilities it carries to be able to equally train officers, and it can help officer even improve their combat capability when it comes to the airborne assault. So it's a very good aircraft, being that it can equally carry out strikes, air-to-air strikes or air-to-ground strike, and it has a good radar system. And according to the information we have, that this new Yak 130M personally recommended to the Burkinabe before they actually procured it, actually had some infrared radar system, and it can even spot targets at night. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a very incredible aircraft, and I think it's going to improve the personnel of the Burkinabe, because the Burkinabe Armed Forces continue to train more Air Force personnel, but this type of equipment is just going to get them to the next level. I know they have some type of excellent pilots like the Mais Traore and the rest of them, but at least bringing this type of aircraft is just going to improve the personnel quality that the Burkinabe Armed Forces just continue to churn out. This is a very incredible news. So for the people that are saying it's a devastating aircraft, no, it's actually not a devastating aircraft, but it's going to be a game changer. It does not have to be devastating for it to be a game changer. That is what I'm trying to put out there. And this equipment is just going to take the Burkinabe Armed Forces to the next level. According to legitimate targets, the Burkinabe nation would now be building 4 to 5 courts for corruption and 2 prison for corruption. And corruption has it has a very big range. Corruption can go from embezzlement of money to obtaining money from individuals under false pretense or whatsoever. So according to Captain Ibrahim Traore, corruption is the first thing he wants to combat. And if you look at his approach, if you look at the things he has said about corruption, it is actually absolutely incredible. Because let me be clear here that most of the crimes you see in the community, in any society, the reason why those crimes are prevalent is because there is a root cause of corruption that has been left unaddressed. Majority of the crime in Nigeria is a crime that is born out of corruption, completely born out of corruption. A lot of crime going on in Nigeria, in any nation, in my own opinion. So the move of Captain Traore to build 4 to 5 courts for trial of corrupt officers and building 2 prisons just for corruption alone is actually a very, very incredible, move by the Burkina Armed Forces. Corruption in every sector, if eradicated, could actually take Burkina Faso to the next level. Definitely you'll be able to have people that are ready to serve in the actual sense of serving. But when corruption prevails, a lot of other crimes are going to be born out of it. So that is a very, very good move by Captain Ibrahim Traore. And I think for you to gain true sovereignty, it's not only about addressing the problem of insecurity, but addressing corruption is another thing. So that's the necessary tools, the financial tools that will be able to bring the best out of the toolbox of every personnel. If you can address corruption, you're just going to get the best of people. So we have the president of Niger Republic, General Abdurrahman Chiani, visiting Tilaberi today, where he actually met the armed forces that have been deployed in theater of combat in Tilaberi to really, really, encourage them and tell them to continue to fight against this war that has been waged against the Sahel.
Officers, enlisted soldiers, air riflemen, officers, non-commissioned officers, enlisted soldiers, air riflemen, gendarmes, National Guards, peacekeepers, customs officers, and forestry agents. In the name of the Republic, in the name of the sovereign people, we extend to you our heartfelt congratulations and our profound thanks for your truly exemplary conduct, for the immense and often personal sacrifices you have made demonstrating unwavering dedication and courage, all in an effort to steadfastly keep the torch of our beloved country burning brightly and proudly, illuminating our path forward for all to see and cherish. We all know, and it is widely acknowledged, that for approximately a decade now, our beloved country, Niger, much like the other sovereign nations forming the esteemed AES Confederation, and indeed the entire vast and diverse Sahel region, has been confronting and grappling with a profoundly challenging and pervasive situation of complete and utter insecurity, impacting every facet of daily life and national stability. To ensure the nation remains perpetually free, sovereign, and steadfast in its foundational principles, the dedicated defense and security forces, through their unwavering commitment and profound bravery, have consistently made truly enormous and deeply personal sacrifices, safeguarding the very essence of our country's existence and future. In the name of the sovereign and resilient Nigerian people, we humbly request that you please accept our most profound and heartfelt condolences during this incredibly difficult and challenging time. For all of our beloved martyrs, both the brave civilians and the courageous military personnel, we humbly pray to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to graciously grant them His boundless mercy and to lovingly welcome them into His eternal paradise, Firdaus. Amen. May their precious souls find eternal rest and peace. We are currently confronting a deeply troubling situation of widespread insecurity, a total and devastating war for those who are most vulnerable and do not possess the means to protect themselves.
The only thing I love about those people is the ability to work with the current reality, improvise, adapt, and forge on in this combat. The good side of the story is that this is a country where It's an operation exclusively between the military and these different groups, right? The civilians still go about their normal livelihood. A situation where when you hear the gun bells ringing, oh, the troops are engaging. It's not like, oh, the civilians are about to be in trouble. It's actually incredible. It's so beautiful. I love the mode of operation in this nation, right? It shows you that the country is really, really ready to fight terrorism. You have troops almost in every square kilometer of the territory of these nations, the Sahelian nation. Because come to think of it, how come you don't have civilian kidnaps and all of that? I do know that partly is because of the funding, but to a larger scale, the Burkinabe, the Nigerian, the Malian armed forces, they have boots on the ground. We know their population is not you cannot compare their population to their land surface area, but at the end of the day, it shows that they have eyes in the sky and they have boots on the ground, because most of the time when you hear a certain clash happen, it's between the troops and this element. All these countries around the AES, why they hate the AES, the reason is not far-fetched. It is because of the stance that the AES state has taken against this war of terrorism. Look at the situation in Nigeria. It is desperately hopeless. And you have people still coming out there to pretend as if, what you have in Nigeria is beyond genocide at this point. The US senator is 100% correct. Now, the context of is Christian, is this, is that, it's 50-50 for me, because look at all this element, right? When they attack, it's always Allahu Akbar, These are mujahideens. They are jihadists. I don't know what is going on over there in Europe or in Asia or in the Middle East or whatsoever, but as far as Africa is concerned, right, most of the terror elements we've seen, you can't make this stuff up. You sometimes, even when the Burkina armed forces neutralizes people, you see the Quran right there. I'm not saying Islam is a bad religion. I'm just saying 99% of these elements, they are Islamic radicalists, or should I say Islamic extremists. So, efforts continue to be made to be able to solve this problem. And this problem will not be solved diplomatically. It can only be solved militarily. And the AES states continue to achieve their military goal. So, to me, whatever the case is for Nigeria, address the problem of insecurity to the best you can. We are not saying eradicate it immediately. We know this is a problem. This is something that has been built up for many years. But show that you are addressing it. That is just all we are asking. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a situation in Algeria where a lot of Algerian independent sub-states are now asking for their independence.
We are absolutely going to unilaterally and formally declare the independence of Kabylie on the 14th of December. We earnestly ask the activist page to fully trust the legitimate Kabyle government, to completely trust IM Nai Kabylie and all the other essential institutions, so that we can effectively move forward together, so that we can truly achieve our shared goals and aspirations. The scenario for the end of the week was presented to the United Nations, which has worked for peace, which made it possible, which has become effective. Thank you, and thanks to everyone else as well.
They want to be sovereign. They want to separate from Algeria. We might be looking at a situation in December where Algeria might be split into, might be, carved into splinters, because you have Kabylie, you have Ashoklef, you have a lot of these Algerian sub-states asking for their independence. Definitely you can see why Algeria is so interested in the Azawad thing. Can't imagine um, Algeria cannot phantom or cannot come to terms with the fact that you just behind their territory, they have a very big Malian territory, and the Malian regime is not willing to give up any part of its territory for some group of rebels, right? Also, for some group of terror element that call themselves FLA, being supported by Algeria. So we have a situation where the Algerian people are now coming out to ask for their independence. They want to separate from the Algerian state. This further, fuels the information that Algeria has a lot of shady things going on with it. Is it about the escape of the Algerian general to Spain that we want to talk about? Or is it about the internal insurrection that has been going on? Is it about the funding of the Azawadian terror group that has been going on, that has been affiliated with Algeria in the same vein? So, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about this move? It's just one of this move that people say that when you plan evil for your neighbor and it backfires, that is the situation in Algeria. Algeria was planning a sort of division in Mali. But ladies and gentlemen, look at what is going on. It continued to divide by the day. Now you can see in the video that the people of Kabylie are now asking to go. They are not even asking for any sort of, they are asking to go in the most diplomatic and the most peaceful way possible. So we have a situation in Europe where the president of France, President Macron, has now, according to what he said, we wish to resume cooperation with Niger for the good of the Nigerians. And the response from President Chiani is, if truly France wants the good of the people of Niger, let it leave them alone. Now, you see, one thing I have to say about this information is simple, right? When you look at most platforms, when you look at most Pan-Africanists, when you look at even PLO Lumumba and the likes of them, when they talk about the Niger situation, they always talk about the money. Everybody talks about the money. Everybody is so locked in on the money. And to me, it is not about the money that France was remitting. Let us get this very, very clear. The activities of Orano in Niger was not about the financial remittance of Orano. No, the relationship of Niger with Orano goes even deeper than that. And I want people to look at it from this perspective, not from the financial perspective. When a lot of people talk about, oh, they were paying Niger this amount and they were, selling the uranium for this amount, please, let us stop looking at it from that perspective. That will be extremely inhumane. Okay? The right perspective to look at this thing as to why Niger can no longer cooperate with these people is because even if they were paying the right amount, how about the technique through which they disposed the contaminants? Look, there is something called hazard, right? The hazard Orano created in Niger is far greater than anything the world has ever seen. Orano, goodness man. Look, we had an information recently that the World Bank said Niger should not touch the uranium reserve of Orano that it has in one particular mine like that. Let me say this very clearly. The World Bank would not be able to stop the Nigerians from having access to whatever Orano has in that place. Because when you look at the activities of Orano in that place, it's war crime. It's crime on humanity. What is the life expectancy of the people living in that region where Orano mined these things? From information, they said just some few meters, the contamination will reach the aquifer of Niger. So, is there any type of reparation or damage that can be paid for that? So in my own opinion, I think that uranium, Niger should be allowed exclusive access to that uranium. It will just be like France paying, it will be like Orano paying for the damage it had done. And let them not come back again. It is not about money. Everything is not about money. And that's the problem that majority of Africans have. Is money, money, money. It's not about money. It's about the life. It's about the activities that was, man, it's a lot, please. I think we should start seeing this not from the financial perspective. Yes, there was a lot of cheating that went down that route, but man, it's a crime on humanity, the activities of Orano in that place. I showed the video on this platform. So this perspective of they were selling it for this amount and they were paying this amount, no, it's not actually cool. The perspective I want to look, it will be inhumane for anybody within and without to talk about the finance and ignore the devastating and catastrophic effects of the methodologies through which Orano performed its activity. There was zero professionalism right there. They were only interested in getting the uranium for profit and for whoever at the expense of the people that inhabited that environment. And that must change. So this whole thing of the World Bank saying, or World Bank courts or whatever, it's not going to work. In any moral court or moral legal scenario, it's not going to work. Go and write that down. So the last information of the day is we have a situation where the general commander of Sudan has now visited Moscow to set the stage for a meeting that will be taking place before the 15th of October 2025, before the Russia-Arab Summit. They said they want Russia to now establish a military base off the coast of Sudan. Ladies and gentlemen, what type of strategic effect do you think this will have on Sudan? According to the information we have, they said they want the influence of Russia to be felt in Sudan, militarily and in terms of economy and in terms of strategic partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, with the presence of Russia in Sudan, are we going to have a situation of seeing the dying days of insurrection, of discomfort, of pain, of trouble, of chaos, of displacement in Sudan? Because the presence of Russia, we know that is not going to be easy because this crisis in Sudan has been going on for a while. But recently we've been having a lot of success by the Sudanese armed forces because they've been collaborating, in terms of intelligence sharing with Russia for quite a while now. And I think the collaboration has yielded much success, like the recent air bombardment that actually led to the neutralization of a lot of Ukrainian machineries that were involved in drone production and some Colombian machineries. So I think this has further, because of the credibility of this intelligence sharing by these two countries, I think it has further, changed the perspective through which the Sudanese now see the Russians. So are we in an era where the Russia influence is about to explode in Africa? Ladies and gentlemen, please kindly drop your opinion in the comment section below. It's your boy 7200 signing out and offset. But before I go, I know a lot of people, they ain't used to seeing me like this. Well, you better get used to it because these are I want to continue to present to you. I want you all to know the real Andre. No more hiding, no more dodging, no more ducking, man. So thanks for watching and thanks for your support. I really appreciate everyone in the Android community. You are taking our flag to the whole new level. And for a while now, we've been conducting few charities, but I think with what is going on recently, um, we will now be taking Android community to a whole new level. We'll be going to the universities and we'll be sharing our goal, what we intend on doing, um, what Android community is all about, and the fact that Android community is a big community that is in almost every region of the planet. And we want a lot of people to know what is going on in the Android community, what we preach in the Android community. It's actually an independent journalist platform, but actually it's bigger than that. It's stronger than that. Um, the discussions in the Android community is much more deeper with great insights that actually connects to liberation on so many levels. So, ladies and gentlemen, I see you when I see you. Thank you and God bless you.